In college, I majored in learning and education studies with a concentration in applied learning science, and I would recommend going to college. Also, I appreciated my major a lot. Recommending majors without context is a challenging thing to do from my perspective because maybe the stuff that I say in this video will answer the question that you have. Maybe it doesn't do that well, but maybe it does it well enough that you will not feel inclined to ask the same questions that I did. Maybe the best thing you can do is ask the questions that I did with the amount of intensity that I wondered with. I don't know. But I didn't start off with this major. I actually went to college pursuing electrical engineering. I had done some physics projects related to electricity in high school, and I was curious about how transistors worked. I knew that electrical engineers could make a decent amount of money, especially out of college, but I didn't really have context for what that amount of money meant. So it was interesting. I was motivated to wonder about transistors into the electrical engineering curriculum, and then I wondered why I couldn't ask more specific questions. I didn't have the language, but I was curious about why I didn't have the language, but I knew that I had the structure of curiosity. Having taken more advanced math classes and physics courses that have had varying lab components with demonstrations, being able to associate the structures from the math and the retrospect of the shapes, like seeing the changes and reflecting on what the TAs have said and seeing some of the structures and being able to see videos now, having the memory of the college courses and being able to associate terms and structures with a process of development that took time and was compared to other processes. Sometimes going to class was more difficult than having relationship, and sometimes I could escape thinking about relationship by going to class. Both happened at the same time, and both had timelines that were out of my control. I was able to explore agency in those contexts and develop interests and relationships and make mistakes and grow from mistakes and develop as a person. But originally, I thought that college would teach me about transistors towards electrical engineering as a career that would give me money out of college. After I dropped out of college, I became a software engineer, and my salary rose relatively quickly. There isn't a lot of stability in software engineering, which is what I've been focused on. Artistic development and software engineering career development can happen in similar strides, and I've been focusing on finding language to bridge the two spaces. Some of it is going to be kind of arbitrary because we need starting points, and the idea that things can represent other things is helpful. It's like mapping one domain onto another. So I'm probably just going to focus on some paintings and tell a story of the characters that I imagine and associate those with some sort of computer science project. Then the really interesting part is that I can associate these constructs with materials and then play around with them and simulate different materials that are possible to create. And depending on the audience and what they're interested in, I can ask them different questions and see what kind of items they want to interact with. And that gets into tangible interface design, which is an emerging career. User interface and user experience design have been focused a lot on graphic design and motion design. The component besides, other than 3D modeling, the component on the other side of design is the tangible interface. That's what people actually interact with and what they consider. So, looking at some of this art, the comics kind of ground the idea that I have, or the ideas that I have about working on a team in an artistic context. And there are just various structures that I can consider. As a software engineer, I consider how easy it would be to make these and how replicable the shapes are. So, could this be automated? And which parts of this process are people going to want to verify? And this is mostly a cognitive exercise. Just being able to associate the different colors with different meanings and kind of allocate space in my mind as I approach new code bases. So I might think of different colors and say, this is the number of file types, for example, that I'm going to consider in this breath. And over time, it gets easier to practice different types of relationships across dimensions, different forms of permanence, different layers of storytelling, which things are easy to imagine, and which things are easy to interact with. Some of it's pretty abstract, but just because that's vibes. Other structures are a bit easier to follow. Every single person has their own way to approach the structures they've navigated before. And novel structures. I've been working with novelists, exploring the ways they approach media. Being able to collaborate in artistic ecosystems has been cool. I like being able to develop ecosystems over time, and that's what I'm going to be looking for. Just generally improving the conditions of consideration and being able to tie it into a broader meaning, something to share relationship. Anyway, that's what I emphasize. Let me know if you want help with digital or tangible media. Cheers.